Well, hello! Welcome to Drawing with Fire. I'm Valarie, your neighborhood pyrography artist. I will be joined with hubby, Upcap, and today we are working. Well, first of all, Happy New Year! It is 2025. It is crazy. Just the thought of it is like, wow. So, if you're already in and you can hear, give me a thumbs up down in the chat. I got a new computer and I need to make sure everything's set up. I did a bunch of testing yesterday, but you never know because things happen. So if you can give me a thumbs up in the chat so I know all is good, we will get going. Alrighty. Share my screens. Oh, and also, if you click the little dial that should be at the top or bottom of your screen, looks like top right, if you have higher, should be going at 1440 60 DPI, or I'm sorry, 60 frames a minute. Hey Sheila, hey Carmen. Alrighty, let's get going. I am heating up the Optima 18 small at 2 right now, and I'm going to move the camera down and we are going to get started filling in this arm. There we go. How does it look? Is it all nice and clear? For whatever reason, it looks like bitrate dropped, but I'm going to wait until you guys tell me how everything looks. I don't know why it would drop. Ugh, it's going to drive me nuts. That's one thing about hooking up a new computer, is never knowing how it's going to stream. Alrighty, I'm getting thumbs up and all looks good, so I shall ignore that warning. Alrighty. So right now, we're over here in the arm, shoulder area. I do have, let me get to my references, the sepia version up as well. And we can see here, we've got a shadow that comes through here. That's also where I've got a smaller reference so I can see. Yeah, we got a shadow that runs right through here, but above and below we only have bright fur up in this area because that's where the light is coming through the trees. If you're new to burning, I highly, or even if you've been burning for a long time, highly recommend that you use a test board to make sure your heat is all good. You will probably see me do that less, only because I've been burning for so long that I'm pretty comfortable with knowing what's going on, although I do still test. I'm on a big easel because this is a big piece. Come on. Huh. There we go. So 2 may not be enough. I'm going to bump up to 2.5. And I'm just going to kind of drag in here. So for bear fur, if you've missed the other lives, we've got a bunch of different lives. Well, the members have more lives on the different kinds of fur within this bear. But the fur in here is a softer fur. So in order to get a softer fur, we want to burn flat. So I'm trying to get my pen angled so you guys can see that I'm burning flat. And dragging in the direction of the fur. That is the biggest thing. Is I am going to bump back down to 2. Is dragging in the direction of the fur. So if the fur was going off to the right like it does down at the bottom, I need to drag to the right. Because even if I have other things wrong within the piece, if I've got the direction going I've got the tonal value and the direction going in the right direction, it will still read as 1, bare fur, and 2, realistic. If you're having that problem, check how you're dragging your tip. Excuse me, and how much of it. So here, the bare fur, because of how it's sitting, this fur comes more at us, but this fur follows the muscle and goes off into this direction. So we need to drag in this direction. And hopefully, I haven't touched this in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I've kind of missed her. There's areas that I need to go through and fix, but for now, this is good. Just get it blocked in. So right now it looks really light, and that's to give me some room to adjust. The last part of a burning for me is where I take the time to adjust and make sure details are in the right spot. For fur, pin-wise, over the years I've gotten the most comfortable using the 18 small, which is a spear shader, not a skew, which gives me more control, better curved strokes for when I'm doing the C's on either edge, and it's also a thin tip, so when I put it on the side you can barely see it because it's that thin. And because I lifted the pin off the board to show you, touch down in the area that's burned darker, and then I can come back up in here, and I'm less likely to get that dreaded blob. Although with the bare fur, it's less of a worry because I can blend it in. And right now I'm kind of going with the grain, so it's a little less likely to happen. More likely to happen when I go across the grain. And that's just the nature of grain. So this is going to have to go much darker. In fact, this tonal value of this part of the fur, which is just the natural fur color, is closer to what's down here. But once I get it blocked in, it's so much easier to start making adjustments versus completely finishing an area and then moving on to the next. One, I get a little bored. And two, it's harder to adjust. And adjust for realism is just something you really need to learn to do. Let's see here. I got lights in my eyes. Turn this just a little bit more. Start in the area I've already burned and drag. And right now, because I'm just toning the board with a little bit of heat, I'm pretty flat. When I want to put detail in, I'm going to go up on the edge, and it's going to be a thinner, faster stroke. I'm going to mute because the rest of the tribe's coming in and I don't want them in your ear. Be right back. Alrighty, we are back on audio.
So it looks like we got Sheila and Carmen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hubcaps here.
Hey. 2025 hubcap.
I know.
New and improved. How improved?
Did you get re-chromed?
Yes.
Silly, silly. So I'm just darkening up these groups because there's so much fur here. If I put every stroke in, it'll start looking very more like raccoon fur. With a raccoon, you do want a lot of coarse looking fur, and so if I put every single fur stroke in detailed, it will start looking coarse. And this is softer fur. Ooh, that didn't come out right. Softer fur, and I don't want it to be coarse. So if all your fur has been coming out soft, then you need to put in some more detail. But if all of your soft fur is coming out coarse looking or feeling, you need to put in softer strokes. And you can blend those together. So it's not a matter of you're done with that piece, oh, I gotta start over, or I gotta do... No, just go over those strokes. I got some graphite in here that I'm trying to erase while watching where the pen tip is so I don't burn my jacket. Alright. Because I'm toning at a lower setting, it's going to require just a little bit more heat to darken it a lot, if that's what I'm going to choose to do. But if you're having a problem with your pen always being hot, besides working at an angle, like I'm up on an easel, and because this piece is so big, I'm on a floor easel, not my counter, which is why I'm using the single, because my dual's up on a shelf. Optima dual's up on a shelf. And a single works just fine. All the heat is going up versus back towards my hand, making my hand hotter. But I'm also only using the temperature that I actually need. I know people want to hurry, hurry, go, go, go.
Link's lady's here.
Hey, Shirley.
She says, hey, look what just popped up on my screen. Yeah.
It has been a while.
Good. I'm glad that she got that notification.
I know. YouTube hasn't been notifying as much. Granted, we've also been in a lot of member lives last year, so due to health reasons. Alright. I'm going to drag. So this is kind of like I'm burnishing and ironing the board. That's kind of what it feels like. It's going to smooth out. So I guess burnishing and ironing, very similar concept. Yeah, we ain't playing, kiddos. So now that I've got this area burnished down, I'm going to bump up my heat to 3. Touch down in a dark area, work my way up. I'm going to still stay flat. Try to vary my strokes so that they're going back and forth. You can see where I even already defined some of the hair because I'm going flat. kind of blending in. But I can get them back later if I need them. If not, that's one less thing I'll need to do. This also makes it easier to change directions if I've messed up. It's very easy to mess up in a live stream because I'm doing so many things at once.
Yes.
That when I step away from the piece and I come back to it, I may see that I've gotten something a little off. So with going, I know it takes longer, but I promise it pays off, whether in less frustration or overall results. It pays off to slow down. It really does. When you see that you've spent more time with your piece, you've slowed down and actually enjoyed what you're doing, because it's not a race. I'm not trying to beat anybody.
You know, here's an interesting thought. I think it's interesting. You guys tell me if it's not. So, as time's progressed in the art community, people have, sought after this. Hey, let's do art quicker. That's like it's not the holy grail, but it is something that a lot of people are like, oh, I want to be able to do it quicker. I want to be able to do it quicker. And even like Bob Ross, who Bob Ross is a hero of mine. But even Bob Ross, he could knock out a painting in, an hour. Even though he'd like prepped that painting and done several versions of it, he'd still execute a painting in an hour. And so he kind of contributed to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're in the era of AI, where it's like, oh, I can have some art created for me on a prompt, in seconds. And this is a really hard thing for a lot of people to try and get by, because it lines up with the sort of like, hey, let's do it faster and easier kind of ethos. But here's my question. Should we? I mean, aren't we getting away from the point of doing art? Because I think that when you are looking at like, oh, faster techniques, to do things, and it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't necessarily mean it's better. And because the process of doing art is also meditative, and it is as much about the journey of getting the piece done as it is about the final result. And if you take out that journey, or if you reduce it in some way, yes, it can give you a product quicker if you're looking for profit, I suppose, but you are not enjoying the creation of it. And I think that even when I've seen artists that are minimalists, that do like a few splashes of paint or whatever, and they're like, oh, this is my creation now, and they did it in like 5-10 minutes or whatever, throwing paint at a canvas. I have to wonder if that art is, it doesn't feel better to me. It feels like that you're being robbed of the creative process of having that engagement with the piece of art. And so I think that there is wisdom in slowing down and taking time to do art, because that process is important. And so I think that I know you are constantly talking about slowing down and taking your time. But I think that there might need to be a conversation in the art community about everybody slowing down and taking their time to do their art, instead of trying to speed through it and get to the end. Anyway, that's my thought.
Although I keep comments to myself, I can look at a piece online and I can tell it. Oops, sorry, there's a hair there. I don't know if my finger came across. I can tell if it was done quick or if they spent time.
Yeah.
I keep my comments to myself on that.
Well,
Doesn't mean I don't have my own thoughts. I just, because what good is it going to do? I'm not impressed when somebody tells me, oh, I burned this in 2 hours. It's like, cool. Now what would it look like if you spent 4 hours?
Yeah.
Even better, what would it look like if you spent 8 hours? That is where you start seeing the growth.
Yeah, and I think...
And not the repetition of your pieces all looking the same. Because if you do it all the same, one, you're not going to learn anything. And I realize not everybody's into doing it for learning. But your actual skill is not going to grow. It will always look the same. And I just think there's more to it. I know that's not what everybody's goal is.
Well, I think... Is it okay if I talk about? I think that a lot of people who are artists, you want to monetize your work, and you want to get...
Yeah, you spend a lot of money on the tools and...
Yeah, you want to get paid for what you do, and so, the old adage is time is money, and so, in theory, the more art that you can produce in a shorter amount of time, should mean more profit, but that's not really the way it works. I think... No.
That's why I do not charge by the hour.
No. I think...
My piece... One, because I choose to go slower. I do not want to be sped up and rushed because I'm charging somebody by the hour. I don't think it's fair to them.
No.
And I know how I want my work to look, and I know in order to achieve that, I have to spend time with it.
Yeah.
So that's why I do not charge by the hour. Because it's just not realistic.
It's
not my client's fault that I need to take time.
Yeah. And I see a lot of art, because I'm not going to call it art, a lot of images, AI images. There is a real push for people to use AI in everything, in art too. It's getting worse. It's worse than it was last year.
Well, for some art, like editing, it's going to help me in editing, hopefully.
Sure, that you're using it as a tool. That's fine.
Yes, but not a finished product.
But, as an artist, because I have art stuff on my feeds for my social media, art stuff comes across my feeds. And oftentimes, I do see AI art come across. And whenever I see it, I am profoundly disappointed in it. And it doesn't matter that it looks cool or that it's animated or whatever. I'm just disappointed in it because it means that it feels like that whoever is...
It loses life.
It loses a life. It feels like the person gave up. They're like, oh, I'm just going to relegate this over to, machine.
A lot of them have convinced themselves they can't do art.
Well, yeah.
So this is the way to...
This is the way to level the playing field, But when I see that work, I feel disappointed. I feel sad because that person that's done that, they're not, they're pitching an idea basically. They're not. It's not the art. They haven't created anything, and it's sad to me.
It's also not copyrightable. It's not your art.
I know.
So, which is only fair. Alright. Just trying to get this toned. I know I keep going over it as we're talking. Maybe you noticed I have not switched pins. I have used multiple pens on this piece in different areas, but I tend to come back to the same pens, and that's the Optima spear shaders. For thicker fur, I have been, and I've got it pulled out ready to go, using the large in order to get a larger area done.
Shirley loves watching you do fur.
Thank you. I know it's so time consuming and so easy to get lost in. I just got a good nice smell of the basswood.
It's almost pleasant. The studio always has this pleasantly smoky smell. Like as if there was a wood fire in here, only there's no fireplace.
Or smoke. Because you might see a little bit come off every now and again, but again, like right there, it's because I slowed down, so it burnt a little hotter. But you didn't see it come. You don't see it coming back at the camera. It's going up, out of my face. So I don't always smell the wood. But the whiff that I just got reminded me of 19 years ago.
When you started?
When I started, yeah. It's been 19 years of doing this now.
Wow.
I haven't stuck to anything that long.
No, if it gives you joy, then that's what you should be doing.
19 years of burning. And I've watched my stuff change and grow. And that's nice to see. And it's as I've slowed down, as I've spent more time, the growth really starts happening. Now I need longer strokes here, so because this fur is longer. In this case, it's easier to start at the bottom and work up to get the overlaps and to get the direction where I wanted. And I want some kind of going off a little, not exact. But in general, I want it all going in the same direction. I've been separating so that they look less like feathers.
Carmen says she watched your live on doing different fur types, and it seems to sink in more.
Yeah, I haven't really changed. I need to get my reference back up. There we go. My phone went to sleep. Changed so much how I do fur. I have changed the pen that I use. Although I can come back in with the 17 SR for hair tip and put some more definition in if I wanted to. But that, for me, I found is better for straighter fur and hair. Make sure I'm not coming off. Let's back off a little bit. There we go. Screen wise, how does the screen look? Is it grainy? Is it sharp?
It's clear. It's sharp.
Clear? Alright. We're running at 2K. I could probably go higher, but...
So you fixed it? Well, I mean, last night you were having a real problem.
I don't know how much actually.
Well, I mean, it looks really good.
4K takes a lot of... And I can do 4K, but... This takes a lot out of it. Bad enough having to get a gaming computer in order to live stream.
Well,
nice and clear.
It's funny because, I mean, gaming computers have become a thing because they require power.
Yep.
But
I needed power.
You need power. You don't need it to game, but you need it, you know, to run the things that you need to run.
So I'm up on the edge. And I can make these longer, short strokes. I'm just trying to go back in the shadows where it's darker.
Carmen is saying on the fur videos where you do the ones that she rewatched were the ones where you do bear, otter, and buffalo fur.
Gotcha.
And I think that's really important to understand how to make these things, how to use these techniques to make them look like the things that you want them to. I mean, that's all of art, really. But
that goes down to shapes and shadows and tonal value, because a lot of that fur uses the same pen and same stroke.
yeah,
You don't have to have a ton of different pens.
no.
I really do only recommend starting off with, if you're doing realism, the pens would change. If you're doing a lot of lettering, there might be some different, or if you're doing, a stylized type of burning, you might want to use some other pens. But for realism, for animals, birds, people, there's really only 4 pens that I use the most. So this pen that I'm using right here, I'd be using it for hair as well. I'd use it for the hair, the clothes, the skin. You don't need a ton of tips. In fact, when you're newer to burning, the more tips you have, the more overwhelmed you can get. And the more overwhelmed you get, the less likely you are to spend time burning. And the less time you spend burning, the less improvement you will see. And then you'll end up walking away from it. I really do wonder how many people walked away too soon, not giving themselves that chance to really explore. And here they've spent all this money on equipment only to put it down and go look for something else to do. Spending time burning truly makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And you only need a couple of pens.
I think what's interesting is, I think as an artist, I think when you have your breakthrough, whatever that is, I think that's the media that you tend to gravitate to after that. Mine was acrylics, airbrush specifically, but I've moved more away from airbrush and gone more to brush techniques. But I have always gravitated towards acrylics because of that. Because that was when I made my big breakthrough in art. Like when I finally got the results I was looking for. And I think that for me, that's what I'm attached to. And for you, clearly it was burning.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I think for these newer people who aspire to do art, and they're going to think they have a breakthrough, but mid-journey is not a tool.
Nope.
But they're going to have that same feeling about it, because for the first time they're able to, air quotes, create something, and that's going to stick with them. It'll be like their moment, but it's really not. That's a client-artist relationship there, because Midjourney is actually the artist in this case, and you're just the client. You're telling what you want, and it's obliging.
So whatever stroke is lighter will read as the top fur, and whatever's darker reads in the shadows. So I'm trying to get it to lay over correctly and separate it. Like I had a real line going through there.
Yeah, I have the benefit of having 3 different views. I have the view of the tablet, which I'm using to monitor chat.
And to make sure I'm still on the screen.
And making sure you're still on the screen. And then I have the view that is further away. It gives me kind of perspective on what you're doing.
Which is why when I stop, I'm looking up at the screen for that same perspective.
And then I have the actual piece that you're using.
Whew. Okay, still
that you're
bright enough.
working on.
Yeah.
And sometimes I worry a little bit, because this happens to me, that I get a little too close to what I'm doing. And but I think that you are good about stepping back every so often and seeing what the big picture looks like.
I try. The live streams do help with that. So I can burn lighter here, and it'll read like light hitting the fur without putting any white, because then it'll stand up too much. So in this area, based on the reference, I wouldn't be putting any white fur here, because it's not a high highlight. It is a bright highlight, but it is not an overwhelming highlight. So I would just keep burning where it's lighter, like right up here. Let me move you up because the light kind of washes it out. So I will burn here. I'm more on the edge, so I'm turning my pen. Because I'm right-handed, I tend to turn to the left. If you're left-handed, it may be more comfortable for you to turn to the right. It will be the same concept. It's just more comfortable with how you're pulling the pen and moving it. And that's going to give me thinner strokes. I'm going to move quicker because this does have less burn here, so if I slow down, it's going to burn darker. And this is how I can control how often I actually have to lift off the board and adjust my heat, like physically on the burner. My pen speed and what part of the tip I'm using makes a much bigger difference. And then I don't have to keep going and adjusting. I can just, let's see here, let's pick a dark area. I haven't burned yet. And we got some dark up in the shoulder here. This is shorter fur, and it's more in groups. So I can use just the tip flat and slow down. But if you notice, I have not adjusted my heat setting. It's just there's less burn here, so it's going to automatically burn hotter. And I'm slowing down, smaller strokes to get into smaller areas. Using the tip. The tip of any pen is going to be your hottest area. All the heat conducts down to the tip. So when I use more of just the tip, it's going to burn hotter. Especially over a raw area. This area has not been burnished like we were working and building down here. This is more raw. All I gotta do is slow down, and I'm on 3. We can see still burning hot. Keeping my hand cooler because I'm not cranking it up to, 5 and above. And working at an angle keeps the heat both off my fingertips and out of my face.
Spence is here.
Hey, Spence! And also helps keep your pens around longer, regardless of what brand you're using. How you care for your pens dictates how much they care for you. I know there's some people out there, and I try not to come off as a snob who are they're like, I don't care if I ruin the tip, I'll just buy new ones. If that's what they choose to do for themselves, that's cool. Other people can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
And it creates more trash, and it's just
I think it's
not necessary.
It's a poor attitude.
It is. You should have a relationship with your tools. They're helping you to bring a vision that's in your head, or what you want, a feeling that you want to bring out. It is a relationship. They're more than just pens. Let me tell you, it's a good thing my pens can't talk. I would not want to hear the gossip. I'm sure they would have a lot to say. Makes me think of the gargoyles on What We Do in the Shadows. That's the voice I got from this pen, was the Missy bitch comment from the gargoyle. And this goes for whatever brand you choose to go with. If you clean them properly, not with sandpaper. It's one of the reasons I stay off Facebook a lot. Is seeing all the bad information given, and I've tried to address it as much as possible, but it gets tiring. So I just have to walk away because it's very frustrating. Don't use sandpaper on your tips. I don't care what brand it is. You will wear them down. They will start burning differently. And then you'll think it's the burner that's doing it, or you're messing up, or, something's wrong. And ask me how I know this. Spend a lot more money only to find out it was the tip. You reshaped it, and so it was heating differently. I think I got some white in here that I want to clean off. And then you end up spending more money than you actually really needed to.
Spend says magic wands.
Yep, magic wands. They help you bring something to this plane that did not exist prior. Like magic. Which kind of just gave me an idea. I'll keep it in my head. But thank you, Spence. Thank you. Alright, I did have some white in here, and then I also had some graphite. I'm trying to remove that real quick. I can wipe down just this particular area with denatured alcohol if I wanted to, but for now I think I'm good. And remember, I just put this pen down for a minute trying to erase, and I know there's still graphite over here. So I'm going to touch down in a really burned area, pull some of the heat out of my pen, and this part's got to darken anyway, so that helps to darken. And then I can move back down to the area I was working. And again, we've been going for 47 minutes and you have not seen me switch pens, and you've seen me adjust the heat once.
I haven't even seen that.
No, you weren't in here. Yeah. Right now I'm flat, so I'm toning, because even though there's some light hitting this, they are not bright white. And as it curves around, the light stops hitting and it just gets dark, and this is the shoulder. So look at that. This is an area that's already burned darker anyway. And I'm just barely touching with the tip, and you could see how dark that burned, even though this area has already been burned. So I'm going to bring that fur together. It's easier to turn your board than to stand on your head, but this piece is so big, I do have to kind of, when I'm on camera, try to contort a little bit. So I'm just darkening up in these areas so I'm flat, and just trying to show you how you shape the fur in the direction that you want it to go, because this fur comes more straight and then it starts curving. So straight fur, I'm going to be doing an up and down, shorter stroke. When it's curving to the left, I'm going to do a longer stroke, curving to the left, or going to the left. When it's to the right, I'm going to curve to the right. So C strokes, X strokes, and flat drags are going to help you build more realistic fur or hair. These same strokes work for people hair. So if you've been feeling like your hair is off, again because it feels coarse, or what have you, you may be putting too much detail in. Only areas that are going to be overly detailed are whatever is closest to the camera and whatever is the focal point. So like this arm is not, it's there. We see it on the camera. We see it on the photo. It is a part of a bigger whole. It is not a main, obvious focal point. Now, if he had his arm up and he's holding something, that would be a different story. This mama, I can say he, she isn't doing that. She's leaning up against a tree. So focal point wise, we have her face and the overarching tonal value and direction of the fur, not the fur itself. It needs to be darker. Drive me nuts. And see, I bounce around a lot because if I fix one area, then other areas will start standing out, and since they all work together, that goes back to the whole not working to finish a piece fully or finish an area fully before I move on. They all work together. So flat, drag in the direction. Because this is softer fur, we see less individuals, and it's more group than individual. The softest fur is going to be about groups overall. This fur is kind of in the middle, so it's about groups. And we do see some individual fur. Like this right here was off camera. This right here was a little too thick, so I'm gonna split it down the middle, darken one of them, and drag. It doesn't even have to be in the middle. It can be a thinner piece of fur. Drag in the direction I want to go. I'm going to have to darken some areas because now it kind of looks a little off, so I'll make a thicker shadow. And this would be the same thing for grass. I mean, we're talking about fur. If you're doing something with a lot of grass, it would be a very similar stroke and concept. So with that, not only do we only need to use one pen, but we only need to do one kind of stroke for multiple different subject types. And that's where practice really comes into play, because the more you practice, one, you'll get faster at it. I mean, we have this on camera, but it's starting to tone more in our short time. Some of these are too standouty, so I'll go flat. And look at that. Tone them up, pushes them back. And if I want to pick out some fur that stands out on top a little bit more, maybe I don't darken that one as much. Drag. In the direction of that fur, flat. This line needs to get broken out. And this is the grain, so you do have to work with the grain. So once you spend more time with your piece of wood, it might be a little easier to get used to making those adjustments when dealing with grain. See, we can see like there's a grain line there, there's a grain line there. And we can see how this stroke is looking. So, to break that up, I'm going to click a couple places, make a smaller stroke, push that back, bring some dark a little further down here, and this all goes to shaping it.
Spence says that looks good.
I think it feels too bright, so I'm going to go flat and just kind of tone it more. Maybe leave some of the tip a little lighter. But then I need to work out, because now it stands out more, so I'd have to keep working around and growing my area to blend it together so that they all look more uniform. I think that's too bright. Darken that. Stop for a minute and back out. In fact, let's back you guys out so you can see it a little more perspective-wise. Let's see here. So we darken that area, just overall this area. I'm going to go ahead and bump down to 2. And just go flat. I'm darkening it overall. That's why I went ahead and lowered my heat. But I can see where things are connecting too much, so I need to just kind of shift. Bring them out. And it's all going to look off for a long time, and then all of a sudden, it'll start looking right. Gotta stick with it. I mean, if you need to walk away for an amount of time just because you're frustrated, totally get that. But if it's a mess like this, it's just not done yet. That's all. It's just not done. Let's see here. I'm going to bump up to 2.5. Just darken. Now wherever, ow, that's a claw on the back of my leg. Roxy's like, okay, Mom, it's lunchtime.
Like, yeah, it's lunchtime.
Yeah, wow. She's like almost perfectly on time. Look at that. I need to darken in between the grain.
It's time, huh?
Yeah. It's like she knows.
Did you see Spence's comment about how long?
No.
How long would this piece take you to complete?
Oh, phew.
Approximately.
Well, I need it done by the end of February. How long have we been working on it? Well, I know there's over 20 I think I've put about 40 to 45 hours into it thus far. It's a 31 inches by 13 and a half inch wide piece. We can really see where the grain is grabbing. So I need to darken in between those lines. I think I could easily spend 100 hours on this piece, easily.
But you know, I think that in line with what we were talking about in the beginning, I think that if you have a piece of art and you're like, man, I could spend 100 hours on this, that's an amazing thing, because that means that that piece has it has the
Potential.
scope for you to do that. Like if you just have like a, I don't know, like a 3x5 post-it note card, you know, you can't do as much with that. You can do a lot with it, but you probably can't spend 100 hours on it. Mm-hmm. But to have a piece that you can spend 100 hours on, that's an amazing thing. I think that instead of thinking it as a challenge, you have to think of it as this wonderful meal that you get to enjoy for 100 hours. You know, like it's great that you have this opportunity to work on something that's large enough and complex enough that it takes 100 hours. I think that's a different way to look at it. Because I think that when we get, this kind of goes along with what we were talking about earlier, or what I was talking about earlier, is that we shouldn't be rushing to the end of things anyway. We should be taking our time to enjoy the art, because that's why we're doing it. Because if you're not doing it because you enjoy it, then I don't think that that's the right thing, you know.
Why are you doing it?
Exactly. But if you have something that's complex enough and large enough that it takes additional time, that's wonderful. It means that you get to do more of it.
I'm trying to alter some of these strokes because of the grain, so I'm flat and dragging in the direction I want it to go, and then I can go back in later and darken up some areas so that it looks like it's going in the right direction.
How much longer are we going?
Next week, I think we'll do another public. Just because we're starting off, 2025. I didn't this year do a portrait project. I think we've done multiple. We started off with the self-portrait, and then we moved to family, and we've done old portraits. We've done famous old people, or famous people from a long time ago. So I couldn't think of a theme and somebody that I would be interested in burning.
Roxy wants to know when you're doing her portrait.
I need to be able to get a good photo of her. Being a black dog, I need some dynamic lighting for her in order for it to...
But she's got very shiny fur.
She does have shiny fur. But I need a dynamic photo of her. So we'll do a public next week. I since we got the new computer, there's things that I want to do for the channel. So I've also been working on those things. But I will sit and take some time to burn.
Okay. Well, I asked you how much longer we're going. We're getting antsy.
Yeah, we're wrapping. So next week, where would you guys like to work on this piece? We can continue fur. We can work on darkening. Okay, I'm getting there. Work on darkening the face. I swear. Yeah, we can work on darkening the face. I know us, the members, we've worked on that. And hopefully there weren't too many ads on this live. I did try to control that no ad should have started unless somebody had been watching for half an hour. So people are going to have to let me know how that went. Some of this is too. So we'll work on bear next week. The members can give me some insight on where they want us to go.
Okay.
Do we have any last questions? So I've only used one pen. I never ventured over 3 setting. And I've worked in multiple areas. Changing how things look. And darkening. Oh, I think I scratched out here. That's why. So we can keep... Go. Back it out. So now, this area was this tonal value, and now go. Look how much darker we got it, and it still needs to go darker here.
Yeah.
And shaping and moving, but this will now force me to go darker in other areas.
Spence says he was late, but he's only had one ad.
Oh, good, good. I really tried to adjust it where there were not crazy ads. There we go. That's closer in the right color. This goes to show how big this piece is. I'm sitting way down here, and I could actually sit lower. So it is. I can't even get it in my lap based on the angle of my chair or where I'm sitting at halfway.
It's quite large.
It is very, very large. Alrighty. Let's get ready. 2025 to say this. Sit with me. You're awesome. You can do this. Why? Because you're a pyro artist. Happy burning, guys.
I don't know why I'm waving. You can't see me. I'm waving, though.
Waving.
It was.
Bye.
Bye. Yes, bye.
Oh,
Okay, all right.
I ended.